I didn't plan to be a guardian. Just a xenobiologist assigned to survey the wild regions along the edge of the Iridan expanse. My job was to collect samples, tag new plant species, and transmit findings to the orbital station. I wasn't equipped for rescue, and I sure as hell wasn't trained for combat. But none of that mattered when I found the den. Or what was left of it. Charred roots. Scorched earth. The kind of precision damage that doesn't come from a forest fire. This was targeted. Something intelligent had done this. I crouched, examining faint tracks in the ash. Small. Clawed. Dragging. Then I heard the sound, soft whimpering. I followed it, slowly, carefully. 3 small figures huddled beneath the roots of an overturned tree. Wide, glassy eyes stared at me, too exhausted to be afraid. Their fur was matted with blood and soot, their limbs trembling. Cubs, clearly, though not any species I'd catalogued before. One of them took a stumbling step forward and collapsed against my boot. I knelt. It didn't flee. It just stared at me, its tiny chest rising in panicked breaths. I wrapped it in my jacket, motioned to the others. They followed. That was all it took. I should have called it in. Waited for extraction. But the moment that first cub leaned against my chest, instinct took over. Old, human instinct. Protect the young. Shelter the weak. It didn't matter that they weren't mine, or even my species. I didn't move. I didn't think. I just held them. Then the forest went quiet. Not the usual hush of wind dying down, but *silent star. Predators. I felt them before I saw them. Yellow eyes. Circling. Closing in. I stood up. Pulled the cubs behind me. Drew my blade. And snarled. The silence cracked like glass. One of the beasts lunged, 6 limbs slamming the earth as it shot forward in a blur. I sidestepped at the last second and slashed across its side with my plasma blade. The weapon hissed as it tore through flesh, and the creature howled in pain, skidding across the moss. The others hesitated, their formation faltering for just a breath. That told me everything. These things were used to prey that ran or froze, not prey that fought back. They circled tighter. 7 of them now, bone-plated hides flexing under shifting muscles. The biggest one stood still, not moving like the rest. Its posture was almost regal, proud. A crown of jagged bone crested over its skull like a natural helm. That one, that was the alpha. I didn't blink. I squared my stance, the plasma blade humming low in my hand, the cubs tucked behind my legs. I expected another charge. But then something unexpected happened. The alpha spoke. Give us the kits. They are marked. The voice was guttural, but unmistakably intelligent. Not mimicry. Not animal communication. Language. I didn't move. You speak. Its head tilted. You protect prey not of your kind. They're mine now, I said, the words coming from someplace deeper than logic. A low rumble rose from the pack. Some kind of growl or laughter, I couldn't tell. The alpha stepped forward, and the cubs whimpered behind me. I tightened my grip on the blade. That's when the sky above us shimmered. The predators froze. Every head turned skyward. A cloaked vessel, sleek, triangular, and humming with dark energy, broke through the clouds, descending with silent menace. Not human. Not local. The pack backed away, fear in their postures. And for the first time since I found the cubs, I felt something worse than panic. I felt hunted. We ran. I didn't wait to see what came next. I scooped up 2 of the cubs and the third leapt onto my back like it had done it 100 times before. I bolted through the underbrush, ducking low branches and dodging roots while the vessel descended behind us like a dark angel of death. My comms were still dead, static buzzing in my earpiece like a warning bell. Whatever that ship was, it had disabled all long-range signals. Which meant we were on our own. I didn't know where I was going, only that we had to keep moving. The cubs weren't crying, but I could feel their tiny claws digging into me, holding on like their lives depended on it. Maybe they did. Whatever had slaughtered their den was back. And this time, it wasn't just beasts on the ground. I found a narrow ridge between 2 cliff faces and ducked into a crevice barely wide enough for the 4 of us. I crouched there, panting, trying to listen through the blood pounding in my ears. The air above shimmered, cloaked drones, barely visible, scanning the terrain. Then, unexpectedly, the smallest cub reached out and placed a paw over my heart. Her eyes locked with mine. I should have flinched, but something in them wasn't just fear, it was memory. Knowledge. A voice echoed inside my mind, delicate but clear, *the colors. My breath caught. The colors were myths. Galactic horror stories told in whispers. Creatures that didn't conquer, didn't enslave. They harvested. Rare species, gifted minds, telepaths, genetic anomalies, stolen, studied, extinguished. And now they were here, tracking 3 survivors. I looked down at the cubs. They weren't just children. They were targets. Relics. The last of something priceless. And I had just put myself between them and extinction. We couldn't stay in the crevice. The drones weren't hunting by sight, they were using heat signatures, perhaps even bioelectric fields. Every passing second was a countdown. I pulled out my old navmap and scanned for any nearby shelters. There was one option, an abandoned research outpost from a terraforming project 20 kilometers east. It had been decommissioned years ago, but if any system still functioned, I might be able to send a signal off-world. It was a slim hope, but hope was all we had. I carried the cubs as far as I could, then let them walk beside me when my arms gave out. They stayed close without needing to be told. They moved with an eerie grace, silent, alert, always scanning the trees. They weren't helpless, just young. And in some instinctual way, they were protecting me, too. Halfway through a narrow ravine, the middle cub, the quietest of the 3, placed her paw on my shoulder and looked up. Her voice whispered in my mind again, soft as a breeze. You feel fear. And guilt. I blinked. I should have done more at the den. I wasn't fast enough. I wasn't strong enough. She tilted her head, studying me in a way no child ever had. You stayed. That makes you different. That makes you ours. The weight of those words hit me harder than the exhaustion in my legs. By dusk, we reached the outpost. It was rusted and overgrown, but its frame was intact. I broke through a side hatch and powered up the backup generator. Lights flickered to life. I activated the emergency beacon and ran a diagnostic on the comms array. We had 48 hours until a signal might reach a patrol ship, if the colors didn't find us first. That's when the motion sensors lit up red. Something had followed us. It came just after nightfall, one of the predator beasts from the forest. It stood in the shattered entry of the outpost, backlit by the dying glow of the sunset. Its yellow eyes locked onto mine, but it didn't lunge. It just watched. I stayed perfectly still, blade in hand, waiting for the telltale shift of weight that meant it would charge. But it didn't. It stepped forward slowly, sniffing the air, claws clicking softly on the metal floor. The cubs huddled behind me, but I noticed something strange. The creature didn't look aggressive. Cautious, yes. Curious, maybe. Its posture was low, not in a pounce stance, but more like deference. Submission. Then the smallest cub moved. She slipped around my leg and took a single bold step toward the beast. I reached to pull her back, but she let out a low, rumbling sound, almost like a purr, but layered, deep. The predator stopped. Sniffed again. Then, to my complete disbelief, it lowered its head. Recognition. It wasn't trying to kill us. It had followed us, to serve. That's when I realized, these cubs weren't just rare. They were important star. Royalty, maybe. Or some kind of telepathic leaders of their species. The predator wasn't an enemy, it was a subject. But any hope of peace shattered when a shriek tore through the air. One of the color scout units descended from the clouds above, sleek and insectoid, scanning the outpost. The predator snarled and turned toward it, not with fear, but with purpose. It was going to fight. Alone. Stay hidden, I told the cubs, pointing to the maintenance crawlspace. No matter what you hear, don't come out. Then I turned, stepped into the corridor, and watched the predator charge into the dark. It wasn't running from the colors. It was defending a star. The next 2 days blurred into a haze of exhaustion, fear, and constant motion. The predator beast had bought us time, but not safety. I heard the battle echoing through the hills. The colors didn't dispatch scouts lightly. That creature fought until silence returned, and when I checked the ridge the next morning, I found nothing but blood and scorched soil. It had died protecting the cubs. Protecting me star. We couldn't afford to mourn. I kept us moving, doubling back through narrow ravines and cold streams to mask our trail. The cubs adapted faster than I did. They moved in silence, warned me of drone paths before I could hear them. Their minds were tuned to something deeper, shared instinct, maybe. Or something else entirely. By the second night, I was stumbling from lack of sleep. We found shelter in a stone alcove carved by wind. I collapsed beside the cubs and stared at the stars. My thoughts spiraled. I wasn't trained for this. I was a scientist, not a soldier. And these weren't just alien orphans, they were hunted, high-value targets carrying some ancient, psychic legacy. If I failed them, it wouldn't just be a tragedy. It could doom whatever species they came from. That was when we heard the ship. Its engines didn't scream, they purred. Sleek, black, and marked with silver heliox sigils, it landed in the valley below us like a shark easing into still water. Not Earth Command. Not a rescue. Corporate mercs. I saw them step out, scanning the ridge. They were armed with shock rifles and genetic readers. One of them laughed. Bounties confirmed. Big ones. You hit the jackpot, old man. I stood slowly, blade in hand. You're not taking them, I said. They smirked. You gonna stop us? No, I muttered. We are. The mercs didn't take me seriously. Why would they? I was dirt-covered, half-starved, standing in front of 3 small cubs like I was a wall against a storm. One of them raised his weapon lazily. Move aside. You'll live longer. I didn't flinch. The cubs stepped beside me, no longer hiding. Their fur bristled, and a strange glow pulsed from their foreheads. A low hum filled the air, vibrating through the rocks beneath us. The merc's smile faded. The smallest cub howled, not in fear, but in defiance. The sound wasn't loud, but it echoed in the mind, rippling outward like a shockwave. A moment later, the forest answered. From every shadow, they came. Dozens of the predators we'd once feared emerged from the trees and cliffs, bone-plated and silent, surrounding the mercs with glowing yellow eyes. The mercs spun in panic, raising their rifles. One fired a shot, and it echoed like thunder. But the predators didn't flinch. They advanced as one. The fight was swift. Brutal. Screams echoed, then faded into silence. When it was over, the forest floor was soaked in blood, but none of it was ours. I stood there, shaking, heart pounding. The predators didn't touch the cubs. Didn't even look at me. They bowed their heads slightly, and vanished into the trees. An hour later, Earth Command finally arrived. Dropships hissed down from the sky, weapons ready, too late to matter. Officers tried to assert control, to separate the cubs for safety. I stepped in front of them again. They stay with me, I said. They're not human, the lead officer replied. I met his eyes, voice steady. They're family. Weeks passed. The council ruled the cubs sovereign beings, free to choose their path. They chose to stay, with me. And I chose to protect them. Always.